Hi, I'm Byron Chaves, Lake Fork Guide. I wanted to talk to you guys about my 5 top baits for fall time fishing on Lake Fork. First one here, or first couple are going to be some slow baits. This first one is a staple. It works year round on Lake Fork. It doesn't matter what time of year it is, and that's a drop shot. On a drop shot, 90% of the time, I'm going to be using a 1 or 2/0 rebarb hook, heavy wire rebarb hook. I'm going to Texas rig my drop shots. I personally like Texas rigging it because of all the wood that's in Lake Fork and all the obstacles that are down there. If you're using an open hook, you're probably going to be spending a lot of time getting unhung. So Texas rigging is important down there. Some of the colors that I like to use are red bug, June bug, and just your standard green pumpkin. I will vary my length on my leader. The colder the water, the shorter the leader I like to go. I mean, all the way down to a 4-inch leader. Sometimes I'll go as much as a 14-inch, but that's about as long as I'll personally ever go, depending on the time of the year. Some of the other baits that I like to use here is a jig. I personally like the poison tailhead jigs. I actually tie my own jigs. I pour my own heads. I do my own skirts, and I like the 3/4 and 1 ounce jig. I use an extra heavy weed guard in them because of all the wood in there. I feel that the poison head is a very versatile head. It's got a little bit of a point, so if there's a little bit of grass or whatever the case may be coming over the wood with that pointed head, it seems to climb over that wood for me. It seems to get through the thicker cover better than most jigs that I've used, whether it be a football head, Archie style head jig, but this right here. And typically my colors are going to be black and blue, especially as the water gets cold. Black and blue is just a solid color. You can't go wrong with that. I like the green pumpkins with a little bit of purple and black in it. And just a large trailer. I use a Magnum Rage Crawl with this bait. I don't use a small trailer at all. The bigger I can find, the better. It slows the fall down a little bit. And it's just a little bit bigger than probably what most people are throwing out there. And in my eyes, it's something that's just a little bit different that's probably going to get you that 1 extra bite throughout that day. Some of the other baits when I'm chasing fish that are shallow is the Rattle Trap. So the Rattle Trap, of course, red, that's a staple Lake Fork. And you can use it in various different ways in the backs of the creeks, channel bends. I also like just using a standard chrome blue, especially under conditions like this where we've got, you know, the cloudy skies or the rainier conditions. That chrome blue seems to work really well for me. There's a variety of ways you can use these. One of the ways I do like to use these, and it's a little tough, but there are areas in Lake Fork that don't have a whole lot of timber. And when I can find those kinds of areas that don't have a lot of timber, and I can find fish schooled up right on the bottom, I like to cast these out and I like to stroke them. And that technique is pretty basic. I'll cast it out, I'll let it sink, I'll rip it off the bottom a couple strokes, and then I'll just let it slowly pendulum back down to the bottom and then rip it back up again. And I've had some great success on Lake Fork in the fall time with that technique and up to 20 feet of water doing that. Another technique that's a staple on Lake Fork is a giant flutter spoon. This one here is a Nichols lure. I really like the Nichols lure. The Nichols lure spoons, to me, they're a little thinner, they're a little bit lighter, and because of that, they're gonna have more of a flutter and a slower fall as they're falling down. You're gonna be using these anywhere where you can find schooling fish offshore. You can use them in cover. They do get hung up, but they're big enough that a lot of the times the weight of the spoon is gonna knock that bait back off that piece of the wood. So more often than not, you can still get your spoon back. And this is a really fun way to do it if they're schooled up. The jig and spoon can really catch a lot of fish. Fun bait to fish. My favorite bait is the jerkbait. And I'll use this fall and early spring. But in the fall time, this bait can be deadly when these fish are a little hesitant, a little inactive. This is a bait that not a lot of people throw on Lake Fork, but it is actually a very good bait on Lake Fork. You just got to vary your cadences. This one here is a mid-depth runner. It's going to go down, this is a pointer 100. It's going to go down 4 to 6 feet. I've got some jerk baits that will go down 212, and I've also got some very shallow running jerk baits too. Most of the time in the fall time, I'm going to be throwing that mid-depth jerk bait. The key is the cadence. Sometimes they want that long pause, sometimes they don't, sometimes I want it ripped real fast. But more often than not, they want that long pause as that water gets a little bit cooler. But try out that jerkbait. I think you'll be satisfied with your results on that. If you'd like more tips and techniques on what we're doing out here and catching these fish and some of these fall techniques that we're using out on the water today, go to okumafishingusa.com.